Welcome to another episode of SG Crypto / Improving Daily, depending on where you are watching this or listening to this. Today, we're going to be diving into XRP and really the power of it. Now, we're not going to dive into everything it can do, but what we will be getting into, and this will be more of a three-parter. Firstly, covering, as you can see here, the financial institution. So this is cross-border payments. And then we will be getting into what it's doing for CBDCs. And then finally, for developers, so the XRP ledger, which that one in itself is very, very deep. That'll be a longer video. Today's a bit of a shorter one. Nonetheless, very important if you are an investor or a potential investor, someone who's been looking at XRP as something you'd like to invest in. Definitely an important video. I think of this as more of an introduction to XRP and what it has to offer. Super important asset. The problem that it solves is nothing to brush off your shoulder. It's very important, and it's something to be aware of. So let's get into it. Firstly, XRP's unmatched benefits. So for some of you that don't know, this is kind of as introductory as it gets, but so that it's fast, right? Transactions settle on the XRP ledger in 3 to 5 seconds. They have low costs at hundredths, 200ths of a penny per transactions on average. The XRP ledger can handle 1,500 transactions per second. It has the ability to scale that actually to 50,000 transactions per second, which is massive. Bitcoin, I believe, is 3 transactions per second, so 500x, but Bitcoin is very archaic. Stable, 70 million ledgers have closed. Sustainable, it's proof of stake chain as opposed to proof of work like Bitcoin, Ethereum. And it has validators, and some important validators that we'll get into, such as one being MIT. So it has the names, it has the infrastructure, it's being used, but here we go. So instant cross-border payments. So by using XRP for cross-border payments, institutions can bridge currencies and ensure payments are sent and received in local currency on either side of a transaction in as little as 3 seconds. And they do this by using what is called xRapid. So xRapid is a liquidity solution for banks that uses Ripple's XRP as a bridge currency and is being developed by the company Ripple. According to Ripple, xRapid eliminates delays in global payments while also dramatically lowering their cost, thus making cross-border payments instant and inexpensive. Now, before moving any further, xRapid has gone under or even Ripple in itself has gone under a rebrand in late 2019. And Ripple has decided to reinvent itself, removing all mention of xRapid, xVia, and xCurrent. But an analysis of what Ripple explains on its website leads to conclude that now xVia and xCurrent coexist with RippleNet, while xRapid is now called On Demand Liquidity. So xVia and xCurrent and the infrastructure behind them, the technology behind them, and their use cases still exist. They're just not segregated or separated from Ripple itself. It's just kind of all coagulated into one thing. While xRapid is still its own entity, but even that has gone on under its own little rebrand, now being called On Demand Liquidity, which is how I'm going to refer to it. So above, as stated, xRapid is a liquidity solution for banks. The gist of that is this. So banks, at the bare minimum, so to do cross-border payments, banks need a pool of available money, liquidity for foreign exchange. This means they have to keep extra currency on hand, which ties up assets for other investments they could be making. xRapid, or On Demand Liquidity, ODL, makes it so XRP can be used for liquidity rather than that currency. That means they don't need a pool or need to keep a pool of extra money on hand. They can use XRP as an intermediary. And that's really, as you'll see later, because XRP and its technology also allows banks and other, it could be a holding company anything like that to tokenize their assets to make them more liquid. And more on that later, but later as in this video. But a payment journey, so this is how it would work. So a payment journey with xRapid or ODL looks like this. A financial institution connects directly to digital asset exchanges in both the originating and destination corridors. So digital asset exchange could be something like Bittrex, which is one that they actually use. Bittrex is an exchange, and it would just these banks or institutions would have to have a partnership or simply just an account with Bittrex in our example. The originating currency is exchanged into XRP, which provides the necessary liquidity to power the final payment. And then in seconds, that XRP is exchanged into the destination currency in the second digital asset exchange. Once this transaction takes place, the funds are sent out on the local rails of the destination country for payout. The transaction is tracked end to end, and the result is cross-border payment that is cheaper and faster than ever before. And it's been used, and even in its use, so for payments in the critical remittance corridor between the US and Mexico, financial institutions using xRapid or ODL, I'm just going to start saying ODL, using ODL saw a savings of 40 to 70% compared to what they normally pay foreign exchange brokers. And on that, so this is simply put in a simple infographic of how the SWIFT system works. How that SWIFT is the current state of how money is moved around the world. So it starts with you over here on the left. You go to your local bank, and then I'll start with this. So you go to your bank. The bank then corresponds with the bank B, which is like the foreign exchange, and then they will send that money to the foreign exchange of the country you're trying to reach and get that money to. And during that time, it goes through this processing network of the CSM, which is converting your money from US dollars to yuan or yen or wherever you're sending it to. It just goes through that process of converting that into the appropriate currency or the native currency of that country. And then it goes to Bank C, which is the foreign exchange of that country, and then to your local bank, and then to you. And this entire thing, so going from Bank A to Bank B to C to D, this all costs money. There are fees associated with all of this. And this entire process in itself takes about 2 to 10 days. I've seen just from looking at different articles, some people say 2 to 5 days, some say 3 to 10. So 2 to 10 days it'll take, and it'll cost on average about 3 to 5% of what you are sending. Not a small amount of money, and it's costly. It's very costly, and this is all something, and this is the current state of things as opposed to the potential and actually what's already being used with On Demand Liquidity through Ripple is transactions taking 3 to 5 seconds and costing a fraction of that, at that 200ths of a penny on average per transaction. So it will free up liquidity for banks to be investing their funds into maybe more infrastructure, into other things that will, create a more frictionless society or economy. It'll just free up that money for them to use in different ways, more effective ways. It'll keep from like quantitative easing when the banks are printing and printing and printing. When they get into a bind and they cannot, and we'll get more into that later, and I'll give you some real world examples, but there are a lot of fixes from RippleNet, from the on-demand liquidity with XRP. So moving on, so Ripple uses a dynamic currency conversion technique that allows Ripple always to offer the lowest exchange rate. So suppose he's paying with INR, which I believe is an India currency, and the end party only accepts USD. In that case, Ripple will find the best conversion rate for the INR-USD pair. So it may directly convert to INR to USD, or it may convert the INR to the British pound and that British pound to USD, depending on the final exchange fees. So it finds the most frictionless, seamless, cost-efficient route on its way. So these transactions are fast, In general, it only takes about 5 seconds, as we talked about. And also stated here is its current TPS, transactions per second, is 1,500, which is, I guess, as we said, 500 times higher than Bitcoin's TPS. But it has the ability, RippleNet has the ability to scale even further and reach as many as 50,000 TPS. It's huge. Then here are some partnerships. So these ones here are active partnerships, people that are actually using the infrastructure right now, the technology right now, and some notable ones. And you guys are probably seeing some that I'm not seeing that are notable. But BMO, big one in the US. A lot of commercial banks, well, commercial banks here, but international banks too. So down here, and these ones are more experimental, and I'm going to leave a link to these sites if you guys wanted to look through them, look through these partnerships. Recommend that you do, just to get some more conviction. Like, do your own research. This is meant to be an introduction to this asset, but the real conviction and real belief in this asset and real like putting your money into it and putting skin in the game is going to come from you actually doing the research and connecting the dots. But yeah, one more thing that is mentioned in this is, so unlike most other cryptocurrencies, Ripple is proof of stake based. Most are kind of proof of stake based, but major ones, notable ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Well, Ethereum now, they emerged and converted into proof of stake as their consensus method. All of that I actually do have a course on. It's free. I'll link the video right here. But so it's proof of stake, which means it requires validators or forgers instead of miners. This list of validators includes top ISPs and even MIT. So that's what I was talking about earlier, with it being just backed by these big names. You got MIT, and then you have it being used by BMO. And you have all these different international banks that are using it and testing it, credit unions, commercial banks. It is being used. It's not just a concept. It's not, it's being used. It is being used. It's not just a thought. It's not just an idea. It's where it started. And then here's yet another list of partners, some that are customers, some that are actually on the RippleNet committee, as you can see, Bank of America is, and some that are actually triangling it, and using it. So, I mean, you got Bank of America, you got some financial groups, Royal Bank of Canada. And other, I'm sure some of these are more notable to you than they are to me. I'm just not in that world of banking, so I don't really know. But again, this will be in the description for you to look through. But to move on to more of the tech and what it's doing and some real world examples. So Ripple was the first company, I'll get into real world examples after this. That'll be in the next article, but Ripple was the first company to leverage crypto. Was the first company to leverage crypto to tackle the trillion-dollar challenges associated with cross-border payments. So many companies have entered this space to address the pitfalls that businesses and consumers alike experience when interacting with our current financial system, but without addressing the underlying infrastructure that this system was built on, which is financial institutions, payment service providers, with tons of those, fintechs, or financial techs, and small to mid enterprises are left navigating an archaic system, SWIFT, that takes time, resources, and money away from their business, as discussed. Ripple's On Demand Liquidity allows customers to instantly move money around the world at any time, even weekends and holidays, without the need for pre-funded accounts or cumbersome correspondent banking relationships that takes days to settle, are costly and error-prone. So that, again, is another advantage. Might be more of an underrated advantage, but being able to send money 24/7, any time of the day, any day of the week, is pretty big, in my opinion. So, to get into some real world examples, because this is really where your mind can actually start to picture, the actual use cases of this if you're not already. So, liquidity on demand, what RippleNet and the XRP ledger can do, will literally change our world and how we conduct our lives. So this is going to kind of tie into the possibilities of the XRP ledger, because through the XRP ledger, is where we'll be able to tokenize your assets, where banks will be able to tokenize their assets, where commercial banks and financial institutions will be able to tokenize their assets, like land, like their stock investments, anything like that, to make them more liquid. So imagine having instant access to your finances, tied up investments, wherever you are in the world. It's like, I read this. So let's take a look at why on-demand liquidity and XRP will revolutionize our lives. And when you experience that light bulb moment, you will see why once it starts, it will not stop. So one thing I wanted to mention is that I've heard this mentioned before, and I've even had questions about it until I put together the information for this video. And it's really, so you have Ripple, the company, and then you have XRP. XRP is not a direct investment in Ripple. However, XRP does see benefits and an increase in price when Ripple, the company, does well, when it announces some big partnership or whatever the case may be. But the link between Ripple and XRP, where there will be that immediate connection of value, or the increase in price dependent upon what Ripple is doing, is on-demand liquidity. So on-demand liquidity is a tool of RippleNet, and on-demand liquidity uses XRP within every single transaction. To move this money, XRP is needed. It's needed as really the currency, and to put away and put down any of your thoughts as to, well, it's a currency, shouldn't it be more stable? It doesn't need to be more stable. I mean, it does need to be relatively stable, because you don't want to be sending XRP when it's $5, and then by the time it gets to its destination, it'll be worth $6 or worth $3. That would be very, very inefficient. But I mean, we are very early right now, and that's why it's so volatile. That's why the entire market is very volatile. Just look back at internet stocks of 90s and early 2000s. Lots of volatility there, until they found that more up and down until they found their more stable pace, we'll say. So a few great examples. So firstly, with ODL, here's the situation. You're a medium-sized company. A larger company makes you a life-changing contract worth millions. The catch is the company needs this order completed within 3 weeks, or the deal is a no-go, and you need $500,000 in raw materials. Due to a recent refurbishment, all of your cash liquidity is tied up in stocks and shares. Releasing this equity will take over 1 month to complete. So all your money right now that is needed to buy the raw materials to move forward with this life-changing contract for your business is tied up in shares, stocks, and as it's stated, it will take over a month for you to get this liquidity out of the market. So the solution: your company has an account at Sologenic. Your assets are tokenized, even though some of them are in stock markets all over the world. You liquefy some of your tokenized shares by converting into XRP, which is then paid instantly to your live wallet and converted into dollars. Your company honors the contract and becomes the market leader. So this will be more in-depthly gone over in the XRPL video, as it ties into this and the tokenization of assets. I just want this to be more of a on-demand liquidity and a more gradual education of what on-demand liquidity is through XRP and Ripple. But I mean, this is essentially what it is. You're liquefying your tokenized shares because they are more easily accessible to the market. And then example B, so the situation: you are a huge international bank with tens of billions in locked up vostro capital, but you find your liquidity has suddenly dried up. You called the Fed and ask for more dollars. The Fed prints you more and crisis is postponed. Then you hear all of your global partner banks are in the same boat, and the Fed is printing billions to try and save the economy. This is currently what's happening. And the solution: you have recently joined RippleNet and have released $200 billion, just like most other banks. You, as well as other banks, have tokenized assets using a platform such as Finastra, another tokenization platform. You and your partner banks have just successfully prevented quantitative easing from going any further, and as a result, the economy is saved. Currently, the global financial markets are in free fall. The Fed, okay, so an estimated $10 to $20 trillion is currently tied up in pre-funding accounts for cross-border payments. Think of that: $10 to $20 trillion would be freed to be used in any way seen fit that would be beneficial to the economy of any of these countries. But think of that, so a company or a bit, in this case, an international bank needs $200 billion to take care of this dried up funding that they've come across. And instead of having the Fed print them more money and that trickling down to us, to everyday people, and being worth less, and then inflation increasing, instead of that happening, they would simply be able to access that money that they needed instantly through, tokenized assets from liquidity that they have tied up in assets like stocks and bonds and things of that nature. And so it allows for more liquid investing, is a good way to put it. And then situation C, this is more to apply to us, but so it's not as mind-blowing as the other two. But if you've been here, the struggle is real. You get the opportunity to buy the car of a lifetime, a DeLorean from Back to the Future. You're $5,000 short. Payday won't get you anywhere near, and the $20K tied up in international shares must be sold when the market's open. The money must be transferred, and last time it took a whole month. The car will be long gone by then. So the solution: you have luckily joined Sologenic. Your shares and stocks are fully tokenized. You trade some shares immediately, then convert the 5K into XRP, then transfer to your live wallet instantly, and then transfer direct to your dealer. So it's just allowing for literally that on-demand liquidity, hence the term. So yeah, I like what he says here. So make no mistake, this world is already here, and its adoption will accelerate exponentially and won't be unstoppable, especially since banks are using it right now. As the benefits of it are being realized, as it's being used, more banks are going to hop on it, more institutions are going to hop on it, more holding companies are going to hop on it and want to use it because of what we just discussed, because of its ability to not tie up, to make every investment more liquid. So that's what I wanted to cover in this video. That's going to be it for it. I think we want to have gone over quite a bit. I will leave all links to all of these articles in the description. And in the next two parts, which will be each Monday, I'll be making a video on them. We'll be covering the central bank digital currencies and how Ripple is tied into that, and powerful utility for developers on the XRPL. So hope you guys learned something. Maybe you might want to watch this over a couple times, maybe look up a few terms that maybe I overlooked, because I've been in crypto for a little while now, and some terms that aren't so intermediate, I might see as simple, you might see as complicated. So if you just make sure that you understand everything that's being said. I know that's my job, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But sometimes it's just overlooked. So if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Links in the description. I will put that proof of stake course video in the middle where we discussed proof of stake chains. And yeah, if you prefer podcast version, if you prefer blog version and reading, definitely go check those out. The link is in the description to all of my socials, every single media source that I have. So I'll catch you guys in the next